to Strength in Numbers, the podcast where we show you that together we can overcome any obstacle. Join us as we bring on world-renowned experts in the field of grit, determination, and perseverance. Lean on us for a prosperous future together. Here's your hosts, Colonel Tim Nye and Neal Keohane.
Welcome to Strength in Numbers. My name is Colonel Retired Tim Nye, and I am joined today, as I always am, by my good friend and the driving force behind our podcast, Mr. Patriot himself, Neal Keohane. For those of you out there who wonder why I called Neal Mr. Patriot, just take a look over my shoulder. For those of you who are listening versus watching on YouTube, you'll see a beautiful American Betsy Ross flag / SOCOM symbol mashup. The flag is made of aluminum, and the stars in the year 1776 have been laser cut. It's really some great craftsmanship. So this is a small example of Neal the Patriot. The patriotic work of the art arrived in the mail today, and I immediately knew I had to set it up, and I immediately knew who sent it. So for that, Neal, I want to thank you, as always. You just do these things out of nowhere. Yeah. Okay, so now back to the show at hand. Today's guest is Mr. Steve Galeazzi. Steve, did I say that right?
Yes, you did, sir.
All right. Steve is a former Army captain and the brother of Greg Galeazzi, also an Army captain. That's important because it's a family of patriots and a family that has sacrificed. Steve's brother was seriously wounded in Afghanistan and lost both his legs and the use of his right arm. Watching his brother struggle drove Steve to look for solutions, not only for his brother, but everyone suffering from lower limb disabilities. Steve founded American Bionics Project to advance technologies for those in need. Steve also helps startup companies and small business ventures, and is also a fitness enthusiast, an explorer, and adventurer. So we've got a lot of material to cover here today with Steve. But before we get started, we want to take a minute and remind you that every subscription and every share helps support veterans across our nation. Whether you are listening on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, or watching us on YouTube, please hit the subscription button and know that you are making the difference in the life of a veteran. All right, with all of that, Steve, welcome to Strength in Numbers.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
All right, so I already asked you this off air, but how did normally Neal's got a whole network of people out there. Did you come through Neal, or how did you come to us?
Yes, it was through Neal via Michelle Burrow, who's a mentor of mine. So, really glad she connected us.
Yeah, Michelle's a great person. I think we both have fondness for her. So, thanks for coming on.
All right, and so Steve, when were you in? When did you serve?
I served from 2004 through most of 2008.
Okay, and with who or whom? With whom? Object of the preposition.
Yeah. I served in the Army. I was an intelligence officer, served mainly with the 204th Military Intelligence Battalion, supporting operations in Latin America. Those were primarily counter narcotics operations in South America. But at the time, we also had a few American hostages being held by the FARC.
Sure.
So working, in intel support to help put those puzzle pieces together to help try to find them, and then also supported the Joint Special Operations Command in Afghanistan.
All right, and what's your background? Are you ROTC or were you?
Yeah. ROTC. Yeah. So funny. So as you teed up in the intro, I'm one of a family who serves. So I'm one of 7 siblings, but of those, the 4 youngest are boys. So a lot of credit goes to my older sisters in keeping us in line and helping mold us. But the 4 boys all served in the Army after college, all via ROTC. So we have a signal officer, my brother John. We have an engineer officer, my brother Tom. I was the intel officer, and Greg is a an infantry officer. So I think, if the zombie apocalypse were to come, I think I like our chances.
There you go.
Yeah,
I like that. Yeah.
Now, are you the oldest of the boys?
I'm not. I'm the second youngest. So,
Oh, okay. So you're
a
one of
middle
the
child all the way around.
Yeah, it's interesting because I have two older brothers, or two older sisters, and two younger brothers. Both my brothers served as well. But it's interesting because most people say, "Oh, you're a middle child," but not really, because I was the oldest boy. I mean, in a time period when I'm old enough that my father's clearly older than I am. The boy is what mattered, and even though my sisters were older, I was still expected to protect them, kind of, so to speak. So
that's exactly right.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting, kind of being the oldest son. There are duties that fall there anyway. Well, good. Now your whole family, it sounds like you. Where are you from?
We're originally from Glastonbury, Connecticut, so a relatively small town in Connecticut.
Yeah, I know exactly where that is. My brother coached lacrosse at that high school for a few years.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
So what years? I wonder if because my brothers and I all played lacrosse. So
no kidding. Yeah. So,
a very small world moment.
Yeah. So he graduated college in '86. So he probably coached '86 to '90, something like that.
Okay. Yeah. As my brothers and I, let's see. Yeah. John was in high school from '92 to '96. He's the oldest. So
all right.
Probably just missed.
Yeah.
But it's got a good tradition in the town for lacrosse. It's
understood.
Sport.
Yeah. He's still coaching, actually. He was going to be head coach for a pretty good school up here in Massachusetts, and just couldn't do it. He actually ended up finding the head coach, and he just is like an assistant, but he loves it. Loves being around kids. Loves teaching. Loves coaching. Loves lacrosse. So
great sport.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. Great team sport. Yeah.
So, Steve, what drove then you and your brothers? I mean, how do four siblings in the same family end up in the military? What was the driving force there?
I think we were raised in a family where service was instilled at a pretty young age. Not only being a Catholic family, and my mom, pretty much the most selfless person you can find, a saint for sure. But my father, perhaps, more importantly in this respect, was a Navy officer. So go figure, four boys of a naval officer all go Army.
Right.
But I think he was just proud that we chose to serve. So
I'm sure he was.
That was really the impetus. Yeah.
And then your brother, when he was injured, when was that?
That was May of 2011.
May of 2011 in Afghanistan. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
I'm just trying to. I was last I was in Afghanistan, assigned was 9 into 10. I went back in 12 for 6 weeks or something on a fact-finding mission, which was almost hilarious because I had been there and no one cared what I had to say when I was there. A year later, I'm going back over with a group of people, interviewing people and trying to find, best practices or whatever. I thought, a year ago, you wouldn't let me come across the street and talk to you. I was just some guy. And now,
funny how that works.
Yeah. The CENTCOM commander and the SOCOM commander put together a team. People actually pay attention to them. So it was nice. But so your brother was hit by an IED, and then you started your company, but one, an unbelievable action to take, but two, what was your background to be able to do that? I mean, how do you just start up a technology company?
Yeah, so my background is in business. I studied business undergrad. When I left the Army in 2008, I went back to school for an MBA as means to transition from the military to the private sector. So not only did I study business, I did management consulting for Deloitte for a couple of years.
Wow. Okay.
And after Deloitte, really felt a calling to entrepreneurship and small business. Tried my hand at a couple startups, varying degrees of success, more failure than success, to be quite honest, from a traditional standpoint, but learned so much through those experiences, getting beat up quite a bit, having to build organizations from scratch, and you really find out what you're made of through that process. And I think just the perseverance to push through those experiences, and understanding that I do have the ability, and the learning process gave me the confidence to be able to launch the American Bionics project.
Yeah, go ahead, Neal.
Yeah, no, I'm just I'm curious about that as well. So heavily tech driven. You got a business background. Who is it? A family affair? Who's involved with you in this business?
Yeah. So I'm lucky to have the support of my family, just on a broader scale. We're really supportive of one another, and that certainly helps keep me going and focused, especially through, as you both know, a lot of the ups and downs that come through organizational development. My brother Tom is directly involved. He's definitely more of a technical mind, being the former engineer officer, and working in that space within the consulting industry. But I think perhaps more importantly is bringing together other talent. And one of our board members is a fantastic individual. His name is Carl Zellick. He leads the biomechatronics lab out of Vanderbilt University. So he's just a fantastic resource to have. We have an advisory council with individuals such as Matt Bellman, who leads a company called Myelin. They were finalists for the Toyota Mobility Challenge for a novel exoskeleton that they've developed. They also have some technologies to help rehab people with paraplegia. Jen French is another member of our advisory council. She leads a nonprofit called the Neurotech Network. She's a paraplegic herself, but it's all about brain controlled and brain interactive technologies. So and the list goes on. I think it's a matter of part of the job of a leader is to realize that you can't do everything yourself, and trying to build the best team. And I'm certainly not the smartest person in the room, right, in general, on my team, and specifically when it comes to technology, and that's how it should be. So always happy to defer to them, and try to kind of build a coalition in that regard.
Yeah, I think the truest sense of a leader is always finding people better than you. A leader generally is just a good team builder a lot of times. And I've always been told that if you think you're the smartest guy in the room, you need to leave that room pretty fast. So it's really cool you built out that team. Was that just networking over the years, or how'd you build that amazing team you have?
Yeah, pure networking. I mean, if I could tell you how many people I've reached out to that never replied.
Right, exactly.
I mean, I can't, the actual statistics would be depressing, but, I just keep reaching out to people, and eventually, for example, Michelle, right? I mean, Michelle is somebody I reached out to completely cold. And, she had the grace and, the willingness to reach out to me, and, feel really blessed that, those people who did respond or who have responded really have helped create a nucleus of a great team. So thankful for that.
Yeah. So as we know, Michelle Burr is an amazing human being. So that needs to be said, and I say it every week. But here's proof positive. But I used to be a stockbroker, and I thrived off of no's, because it basically what kept me going was, well, that no was just one more person out of the way to get a yes. So we kind of build this podcast around grit, determination, and perseverance. So that is what you're doing. I mean, it's just never giving up. And always finding there's a yes somewhere. You just have to find it. And Colonel Nye and I talk a lot about this, but there's a wall in everyone's life. And are you gonna let it stop you? Are you gonna go around it, go under it, go over it, or just go through it? And you can be that bull in the china shop, or you probably have a higher IQ than me, so you're gonna figure a way to go over it. I might try to go through it, but we might still meet each other on the other side. But so I think it's a little early on to do this, Steve, but why don't we talk a little bit about, we've already got an example of your grit and determination by all those no's, and you still have put together a phenomenal team. What are some of the things, maybe in your childhood, through college, through the Army, that, you know, outright failed on, and you just said, well, I learned from that, and I'm going to move on and get better, try to succeed, try to, do it better. So what we try to do in this podcast is just show everyone through the lockdown and COVID and all the stuff, these walls that people keep putting up in front of us every day for no reason. What's a way to circumvent that? Because we're trying to put guests out to our audience that never say, I'm going to stop. I'm just going to keep going. So if you could share some personal stories that might be relevant to our audience.
Yeah, I think, the most relevant ones are probably some of the more recent ones, actually. I think taking the leap of faith to do my first startup, which was leaving the relative comfort and certainty of the corporate consulting world. I was working for Deloitte Consulting at the time, and fantastic company, and would like to give them a shout out just for how supportive they were for when my brother was injured. I was actually working in Manhattan, where I still live currently, when Greg was injured, and the amount of resources they brought to bear on behalf of my brother and our family was just outstanding. But when I decided it was time to move on from the organization and scratch that entrepreneurial itch, per se, I faced a lot of adversity in trying to create an organization, which was actually an online dating app. Thought I had this great idea, and actually a great idea it was, but the execution, as you both know, it comes down to execution. And I think a lot of the struggles that I went through trying to create that organization really set the foundation of learning that I was able to apply to the American Bionics project and subsequent projects. So that, I think, we talked about not trying to do everything yourself, for understanding where your limitations are, trying to build the right team. For me, trying to launch a dating app as a non-technical founder was a big challenge, and a realization to me that you need to bring the right people to bear. You need to bring the right resources to bear. You need to be willing to admit when you don't have the skills, when you're pushing down a road that, not to be so stubborn, not to be able to kind of take a pause, look around, reassess your bearings, maybe reevaluate the plan, and have a little bit of flexibility there. It was kind of shame on me for not kind of taking the lessons learned from being a military officer, especially serving in dynamic environments like Latin America and Afghanistan, of really, taking a plan, but also building in enough flexibility to adapt and evolve over time. And I think what I've seen over the last 10 years of my career is things are not becoming more predictable. They're actually becoming less predictable. But I think if we can make ourselves malleable and not forget some of those lessons we learned along the way, you can roll with those punches and kind of come out even stronger than you were before. So I think it's just about being flexible and trying to learn as I go, really. Yeah.
Well, let me ask you this. So let's talk about that dating app a little bit. So when you thought that up, was it ego, or was it stubbornness, or what do you think, looking back now, after being, like the word you said, malleable on new ideas and refocusing new ideas in this new company? But what do you think stopped you from that being successful? Was it you? Was it you weren't listening to people, or?
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, it probably came down to me, really.
Yeah.
Just need to, be, I think, honest about that, and honest with myself about that. It's one of the biggest lessons learned for me through that experience was, while it was a fantastic idea, it wasn't something at the end of the day that I was truly passionate about.
Yep.
And the lesson learned from me was that if you're not passionate about what you're working on, especially creating an organization like that from scratch, it's really hard to make it through all the ups and downs and all the curveballs that get thrown at you while creating that organization. And, it's night and day to what I'm doing with the American Bionics Project, which is something I'm extremely passionate about. It's something very personal for me with my family, obviously, my brother Greg, but it doesn't feel like work. It doesn't, those rough days. Sure, you might get to the end of the day and be exhausted, but the days fly, and the work that I'm doing is something that I really enjoy. And even those difficult challenges, they're like nothing. So, that's one of the biggest lessons learned for me. Just choosing a project not based on what you think if it's a good idea, or you might be able to make a bunch of money off of it, but what do you really want to do? What are you really passionate about? And that's what's going to define your success and whether or not you make it in the long run.
Yeah, agreed. I just because you have a job that pays you a lot of money might get you out of bed in the morning, but it might not drive you through some difficult times, and you might get burnt out, or you might wake up at 50 or 60 years old and wonder where your kids and wife are, or something like that. So that's some great points you made there. I appreciate that. Colonel, do you want to maybe talk about, I think I
just want to ask something a lot more basic.
Yeah.
Where is your brother now, and how is he doing?
Yeah, Greg is living in Hopkinton, Massachusetts, so I would assume not too far from where Neal is.
Not far at all.
Up in the great land of the New England Patriots. I'm down here, all surrounded by Jets and Giants fans.
Exactly, right.
God help me.
Right.
Yeah, so Greg's in Hopkinton, Massachusetts. He lives there with his wife, Jasmine. They have a young son, and they're actually expecting their second child, a daughter, in November of this year. So
amazing.
Yeah, he's doing well on that front. He's actually in his third year of medical school. He's at Harvard Medical School right now. So
awesome.
Yeah, you guys. First of all, I have to say, I think you guys are talking to the wrong brother.
And it just crossed my mind as well.
There's the humbleness coming out. I think you learned something from that dating app.
Yeah, exactly. It's really incredible what Greg has accomplished. I couldn't be more proud of him, just in his perseverance. This is a guy who went from being class clown in high school to an infantry officer, Army Ranger, double amputee, reteaching himself how to walk, reteaching himself how to play guitar, and then touring with Roger Waters from Pink Floyd, getting into Harvard Medical School, meeting his wife.
Yeah, get him on.
Like, what am I doing over here? I got to get myself together.
Yeah,
but it's exactly what you just said, though, Steve. It shows what happens when passion takes over, right? When you really know what you want and you're chasing what you want versus what you need, or what other people think you want or need. When it's your dream, those obstacles melt away much quicker. They're not any easier. They just, there were times in my life where somebody'd say, I don't want to get in my story, but and say, okay, well, it just got harder. It didn't get impossible. It just got harder. Right. No doubt about it. It's going to be harder now, but it's still doable, right? I mean, and you just kind of just keep going. And it's just much easier when you have the passion and the belief. And your brother does. He sounds like an amazing human. And again, I imagine so that we know about you and we know about your brother. I'm going to assume the whole family is that way.
Yeah, I certainly believe so. Siblings are incredible people. Like I said, they in the beginning, when we started chatting, they really helped mold and guide me throughout not only this process but my entire life. So I couldn't be more thankful. There's a lot of talk, and this isn't a political statement at all, but there's a lot of talk about privilege these days, and I think that my greatest privileges for sure have been not only being born in this country, but being born to the family that I have and the siblings and the parents that I had to guide me. That's really been just an incredible blessing in my life. So I'm so thankful.
No, I think you're right. The family is the basic building block, right? When you talk organization, that is the bottom rung. But I mean, high performing organizations share the same characteristics as a high performing family. You know, you're in amongst peers. You want to try to keep up. There's a level of responsibility. There's a level of you don't want to let other people down. You know, and I think when it's family, it's even more so. And it's, you know, it's good peer competition. You know, it's well, it is, right? I mean, it's the good part of it, driving one another, pushing one another. You know, competition's a good thing, not a bad thing. And I don't even mean competition like you're banging heads, but driving one another, you know, and then actually being like, which is clearly your case, being happy for and proud of those siblings when they do things,
right,
when they achieve. I mean, that's how you would hope all families are. Sadly, we know that that's not the case because sadly, most families aren't structured that way anymore. I was born, luckily, like you, in a family like yours, probably on a much, much lower economic scale, but the family structure was still there. And that's what's important, I think.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, I certainly wasn't laughing about the healthy competition, but for some reason, just, you know, it's like those flashes that, you know, come into your mind of you know, brother fights at various points in time, and all sorts of competition, whether it be, you know, athletic or academic, musical, whatever it might be. But certainly, to your point, it helps push us to be better, and we all celebrate each other's success. So that's a great thing.
Well, as a grandfather, I watch my two grandsons, a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old. And I watch even now the 3-year-old try to do everything his brother can do. Some things he can, some things he can't, and some things he's already shown that I think he's going to be much better at it. You know,
right.
He's driven to do whatever his big brother can do, which is going to make him, you know, bigger, stronger, faster, whatever, in the long run.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. And for me, being the oldest son, you can never let the younger ones beat you at anything. I mean, you just don't allow that to creep in.
Right.
I mean, it happens. Don't get me wrong. My brother crushed me on a lot of things, but I can't mentally, you know, I can't allow it.
So, Steve, you talked about, we'll go back a little bit, but you talked about your mom being a saint. I can only imagine with 4 boys, what she went through. So let's give some props to your mom. And so you played lacrosse. What other sports did you and your brothers play, and were you teammates growing up?
Yeah, there's about 2 years in between each of us, so there was a little bit of overlap between Greg and I. There's about 3.5 years, so we weren't frequently on the same teams, but we played a lot of the classic sports: baseball, soccer, lacrosse, basketball. A couple of us, a little bit of rugby in college.
Oh, nice.
Anything to be out, active, get out of the house, be in those team environments. There weren't a lot of solo sports, not a lot of tennis and golf for us. It was a lot of team sports. Also involved in Boy Scouts, church. Yeah. So, you know, God bless my parents for driving us around to all those things. I think
exactly. So, Steve, we know Colonel Nye is the one really who introduced me to Joe DeSena, who's the founder of Spartan Races. So I think between Colonel Nye and myself, we can get you and your brothers some passes once they open back up and get you guys on a mountain with your brother Greg.
Nice. Yeah, that would be great. Would love that. Yeah, I'm familiar with great organization. Have done a few of their races. Yeah. Now we actually have some of my nephews are old enough. They're starting to do them as well. So big supporter of Spartan Races. Love them. Yeah, it'd be great.
Yeah. So we'll try to figure out a city or a state that you guys can all get to and try to hook you up. Colonel and I will watch you from the bottom of the mountain.
Yeah, right.
Well, I would think the Fenway race is always a good one, though.
Oh yeah, the Fenway race is great, Steve. That's it's a stadium race, but awesome. You get to go into parts of Fenway that no one ever gets to see. We run through locker rooms and all kinds of stuff. So it's really cool.
You run the warning track. You run the
Green Monster.
You're up on top of the Green Monster. You're running. You're, like you say, the track goes right through the locker room. It's a pretty unique race.
Yeah, really fun. Really fun. But I think this is a good time maybe to take a break. We'll thank some of our sponsors. and we'll come back. I'm going to say this like an Italian. We're going to come right back with Steve Galeazzi. Hold on. Okay, everyone, we are back with Strength in Numbers with Steve Galeazzi, and he's been gracious enough to carve out some of his time today to share with Colonel Nye and myself and everyone listening. Steve, why don't we fast forward a little bit? I'm sure we'll bounce around, but let's talk about your passion and your company and what you're doing and where you are, where you started, where you are now, and where you want to go.
Yeah, so the American Bionics Project, as you both know, was born from the experience that I had with my brother Greg and him losing his legs in Afghanistan. When he was first injured back in 2011, I was living in New York City at the time, and I knew when I got the call that said he was injured, I knew I wanted to be wherever he was going to be by his side. I knew he had a really long, arduous road to recovery, and turned out the best place for him to recover at that time was the Brooke Army Medical Center in San Antonio, Texas. So I moved out to Texas within about less than a week. To be honest, was the first one from my family there. Seeing him in that state was life-changing for sure.
Yeah.
The last time I'd seen him was during his R&R from Afghanistan. We met up in Costa Rica. We're surfing, hiking through the mountains, jumping off cliffs into the water. You know, that's the type of active lifestyle that we love to share. And having it sink in over time that we weren't really going to be able to share that life in the same way that we had hoped really got me asking a lot of questions about why the technologies that were available to our veterans were the way they were and why they weren't better. I think you go through this process of thought where, you know, originally at first you're just really happy that your loved one is alive. You're really thankful that they survived, and certainly surviving the blast that he did was a miracle. So, you know, we're really thankful about that. And then you enter the recovery process, and as the days turn into weeks, turn into months, you realize that maybe some of the solutions that you thought that were available, where you thought prosthetics might be, for example, as for him as an amputee, the solutions really weren't where we needed them to be for him to be able to live the life that we had hoped he'd be able to, even after his injuries. And seeing other veterans, you know, in San Antonio where he was recovering, struggle as they did, that was really difficult. So it set me on this journey of asking a lot of questions, kind of peeling back the layers, and understanding, you know, where some of the gaps were in the space, understanding, you know, what was holding back technologies from progressing at the same rate as some of the commercial technologies that we're used to. Why, for example, are we carrying around more technology in our pockets than people are relying on to walk? And so when I moved back to New York, I actually did a second master's degree specifically focused on exploring this question. And I came out of that really with a better understanding of, you know, how some of the pieces were coming together, but also where some of the gaps were. And you know, that was the impetus for creating the American Bionics Project. You know, what we've decided to do is address 3 gaps in this space. You know, specifically focused on people with lower limb disabilities and the technologies that can help them get up and walk again. The first area is go-to-market capabilities. So right now, the ecosystem of researchers and engineers who are developing innovative technologies oftentimes don't have the resources or the know-how to bring a product to market. And ultimately, if it isn't brought to market, it's not people in need. So we're creating an incubator to help foster those ideas from, you know, innovation from the lab to market and to people in need. The second is funding. So we're standing up an innovation fund specifically to invest in entrepreneurs and early stage companies who have innovative technologies to be able to help people walk again, focus specifically on people with lower limb disabilities. And the third is just collaboration, really trying to set standards, be a leader, set a vision for this space, and bring people together. So we're in our early days of fundraising and setting these programs up, building a coalition of people, whether they be advisors, whether they be actual team members helping execute, and really just excited for what's to come, because there's so much opportunity in the space, and I think it's really been craving leadership, and we're hoping to fill that role.
It's amazing. Colonel?
No, I was going to say it is remarkable. How many people do you have on board right now, as far as your entrepreneurs, your funding stream, if you will?
Yeah, so we have a small group. It's only about a dozen people right now, and looking to grow every day, but strategic growth, making sure that we're trying to bring on the right people, the right funding sources that keep us, we talked about malleability and flexibility to be able to stay flexible and capitalize on opportunities as they arise, because this space doesn't have a lot of roadmaps to it. We're kind of creating one as we go. And on the one hand, that can be a lot of fun, but it's also a big challenge. So, there's a big element of learning as we go and trying to find really where we can have the most impact. And so, that's kind of key too.
Is there government money available out there for this? I would think there would be grants or something out there.
Yeah. So, there should be is the short answer. The longer answer is we're going to try to do this in the early stages without government money, just some of the strings that come along with that. Again, trying to stay flexible and be able to invest in the areas that we need to have the biggest impact. And that's certainly not to issue government money. It's just a matter of trying to stay focused right now and again, kind of being able to guide our process.
Yeah, I completely understand.
Yeah, Colonel. So we'll talk offline with Steve about this, but when you invited me down for the Medal of Honor convention last fall, there's someone I think we both can speak to Steve about that might be able to help him. So Steve, we'll talk offline. I don't know if Colonel's getting my vibe on who that might be, but we're going to try to, so you see his eyes, right? So I know I'm always thinking I am more of an entrepreneur than I am a business guy or an intellectual, but I love networking and whoever I meet in my life, if they're good human beings, I like to stay involved and share those with other people. So we'll talk about that later. Do you want to talk about anything else about your company? I know you gave a shout out to Deloitte, which I'm glad you did. People like that, companies like that need to be recognized that take care of veterans and other people in need. But is there anything you want to talk about? We have plenty of time, but I just want you to be able to stress some needs or some wants. Yeah.
Yeah. I think one of the challenges that we're having now is that for those involved in the American Bionics Project, we're intimately familiar with the scope of lower limb disability in America, both on a broad scale and on a personal scale. But I think it's important for people to know really just how wide-ranging this is. So we're not focused just on veterans and amputees, such as my brother. While that is the inspiration for the organization, and it's certainly something that drives me every day, it goes well beyond that.
Sure.
There are millions of Americans who are struggling with the after effects of stroke, with disease such as MS or cerebral palsy, forms of trauma, whether it be a work accident or a car accident. And these disabilities, again, ranging from young to old and all sorts and taking all sorts of shapes and sizes, they really impact people's lives in a number of ways that are both visible and invisible. So certainly the ability to stand and walk is important for one's physical health, but also the mental and social well-being of that individual to be able to get up, to be able to get outside, to be able to live life independently, to be able to live life on their terms, to be able to socialize, whether it be navigating a busy sidewalk or a local bar or restaurant without fear of being looked at or without being fear of whether or not your wheelchair can make it into the bathroom. And for us, we're really just, we don't accept the status quo. The fact is that my brother, for as greedy as he is, for as determined and as successful as he is in many aspects of his life, and the fact that he's a veteran with access to the best technologies and healthcare support available to him, he lives his life in a wheelchair every day.
Yeah.
He's not up on prostheses. Maybe it's for a photo op, or people just imagine, well, he has prostheses. Does he have them? Is he walking on them? Sure, maybe once in a while. But by and large, and this is no indictment of Greg, it's just it's really a matter of the technology. He has the will, but the nature of his injuries have him in a wheelchair every day, and the effects that has on him, both from a physical perspective and those other ways that we mentioned, it's really heartbreaking for me to see as his brother. And there are millions of other Americans out there who are in wheelchairs, and this technology, wheelchair technology, I mean, this is something that hasn't evolved in decades.
Right.
Why do we think that that's the best that we can do for these people, whether they be veterans or whether they be our parents?
Sure.
Why do we accept the fact that aging just has to happen, and as our bodies break down, then how that's interconnected with our loved ones' mental health and their social health as well. They become more isolated as they can't get up and move and be outside and interact with friends and family. So it's really just this attitude of within the American Bionics Project of not accepting the status quo. I like to ask people, if you were to put Elon Musk or Steve Jobs when he was alive on the problem of getting people up and walking again, do you think they would start with wheelchairs? Do you think that they would accept the fact that we have one prosthetic limb that is for running and one for walking? We don't have one that can do both. What if you're in an emergency situation and you need to run on your walking prosthetic, whatever it might be? You're screwed. So there's just so much potential in this space, and right now, again, to discuss some of the issues that we talked about before. I mean, one of the things that really astounded me, the most advanced prosthetic leg that my brother was given when he was recovering was developed with a grant of $1 million from the United States Army. Meanwhile, we spend $100 million on a single plane. And I'm not asking the Air Force guys to give up a plane. I mean, God knows the Air Force guys probably never would. But, I mean, if we're building a bionic leg with $1 million grant from the government, what could we do with that $100 million? What could we do with $200 million? And that's really where we need to get ourselves. It's really where we need to get our organization. It's never a matter of just throwing money at the problem, but it's about bringing people together. Again, there's zero collaboration. Right now, everybody, whether they be a researcher, an engineer, companies, everybody's working in their own silo with in their own little world, just trying to prove their own concept, get published, move on to the next thing. Nobody's focused about bringing these products to market. And like I said before, if they're not brought to market, how are they actually going to help people in need? So we have some really big challenges that we're trying to solve. We absolutely do not accept the status quo. We're setting some goals. We want to make, our vision is to make wheelchairs obsolete within the next 15 years. I know that seems a bit crazy, but we have to set big goals. And, sure, while wheelchairs may still be around, making them obsolete really means making sure that they're no longer a first or second option for people anymore, that people have real opportunity to stand, to walk, to be independent, and to live independently. So that's really the scope of what we're trying to do and what I'd like people to understand.
Yeah. So, Steve, you said a lot there, and all of it was amazing, and everyone needs to hear this. But kind of bottom line, that is, you don't accept the status quo, which I think a lot of people in this country have accepted the status quo. And, our program is about grit, determination, and perseverance. But as our friend Joe DeSena says, people have gotten comfortable being comfortable, and it's awesome to hear you say you are not accepting the status quo and you're actually doing something, which is awesome. And hats off to you. I know it's a personal reason, but I understand coming from Wall Street onto the nonprofit scene that everyone can share, everyone can work together, everyone can collaborate, but they don't. And it's really a sad thing that, but on the flip side of that is you're building a great team of amazing people that might be in their own silos if it wasn't for you. So that's kudos to you as well.
Yeah. Thanks. Yeah. Well, a lot of hard work to do, but it's worth it.
Yeah, of course. Of course. So is there, go ahead, Colonel.
No, I just want to ask quick before you move on. So,
yeah.
You see us moving away from the wheelchairs to what is, I know the exoskeletons, we're trying to make these super warriors, but that's to go to combat. Are you also looking at exoskeletons, for wounded guys? Is
Sure.
that the idea?
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, we view the environment in a couple different ways. There's primary technologies. So those would be exoskeletons, especially for people with paraplegia. You have prosthetic devices for amputees, of course. And then there's other assistive and adaptive technologies as well. You have enabling areas of technology such as artificial intelligence and machine learning, and how those can be applied to some of these existing technologies such as exoskeletons and prosthetics. You have a really interesting field of regenerative medicine to be able to help stimulate people with spinal cord injuries or nerve damage, bone regrowth, these types of things. And it's really a whole ecosystem, I think, of looking at the big picture and trying to bring the pieces of the puzzle together. Understand there's likely one silver bullet here. It's likely bringing some of these enabling technologies together with some of the kind of more foundational structural technologies to help give best outcomes to those in need. So a good example would be the field of regenerative medicine with prostheses. The longer your residual limb is, the more control and the more power you're going to have over that prosthetic device. One of the challenges that my brother has, for example, and not to share necessarily his personal physical situation, but I think it's easy for people to see, is that one of his legs, that both amputations are above the knee, one leg has quite a bit of length, and that really provides a lot of leverage and power for him when he's using his prosthetic device. The other residual limb is very short, so that makes it really difficult and painful for him to use the prosthetic technologies that are currently available. So again, bringing together the fields of regenerative medicine and allowing bone, tissue, and muscle regrowth on that limb to then be able to better control a prosthetic device. And that takes a lot of planning, that takes a lot of coordination. But right now, the fields aren't really, they're just in a nascent stage of collaborating. But again, one of the areas that we want to help foster more focused and faster collaboration.
Well, you started this whole thing saying you were surprised to find out the state of the technology.
Yeah.
I got to tell you what, I am shocked by hearing some of the things you've said, because I just thought we were much further advanced. I mean, I really would have thought so.
Yeah, it is frustrating because I think there's so much possibility out there, but there's a lack of impetus. There's a lack of motivation to really, again, bring these products to market. This is no knock on the brilliant people who are researching and engineering these devices, mostly in universities and in labs. But listen, if we're relying on me to engineer or design a device for people with lower limb disabilities, we're in trouble, right? I don't have that technical expertise. At the same time, if we're relying on these engineers and scientists to create a business and bring products to market, we're just as in trouble.
Yeah, right.
These devices, the highlights you see on 60 Minutes or an article that you read on, in the New York Times or whatever it might be, most of those things are in the exploratory phases in labs. And the way that intellectual property rights work with the universities, and again, the motivation and the expertise of the academics who are working on these devices. A lot of times these promising technologies fall into what's called the innovation valley of death. That's not a term I made up. It's something I learned along the way. It sounds ominous, and I think it is.
Yeah.
It's essentially where all these really good ideas and promising technologies go to die because they never make it out of the university setting. They never make it out of the labs. And the people in need essentially just settle for incremental change once every 10 years. And that's not what we need. We need more rapid innovation. The iPhones that we have in our pockets, they iterate every 6 to 12 months. And by doing so, you get a lot of user feedback throughout that process. You learn what's working, what's not, what people need, what they don't. And without having more rapid, iterative technological innovation, we're just setting ourselves up for this constant disappointment. And, here to, it's funny, Neal, to kind of bring things back full circle. You mentioned in the beginning, well, maybe I have a higher emotional IQ. You're more of a bull in a china shop. I don't care. I don't care what doors I need to kick down. I don't care what feathers I need to ruffle. I don't care what congressperson I need to sit down in a room and give a talking to. We're going to make these changes, whether it's next year, over the next 10 years. I mean, this is my life's calling, and I don't really care. I mean, we're going to get it done.
Yeah.
You make me think of the flying car when you're talking. I mean, we've been hearing about it my entire life, right?
Right.
It's coming. The technology is here. It's there. Or a guy on a jetpack. We're all going to have our own jetpack. And every now and then you'll see a guy on a jetpack, but it's rare, right? And you would have thought we would have had a flying car, some kind of model or something by now. I mean, I just, you'd have thought it'd come around, and maybe it had, but it sounds like maybe it's in that valley of innovation death. Or
and I know you're using this as an analogy, but I mean, we're talking some basic things here. We're talking, again, the ability to go from a walk to a jog with the same prosthetic device. We're talking about sockets that aren't so painful to wear that you have to take them off after just a few minutes. We're talking about sockets that don't get so sweaty that you're losing the suction and the connection to the limb. I mean, the exoskeletons that we have right now, the most advanced exoskeletons, the fastest one can go at the rate of 1/3 the average rate of somebody walking. So the average human walks at, let's just say, 6 feet per second. A little generous, but for easy math, the fastest exoskeleton can walk at 2 feet per second. I mean, if you wanted to take a casual stroll down your driveway, you would leave the fastest technology, in terms of exoskeletons in the dust. So, I mean, listen, yes, we're talking about trying to do big things, but some of those big things just involve, how do we get those exoskeletons to where they can just walk at a casual, comfortable pace next to somebody else? Then we'll talk about them climbing mountains or adding jetpacks or something like that.
Yeah. Wow.
So, unfortunately, Steve, this is kind of where we wrap up. I'm actually glad you kind of left on that note, because it's going to make a lot of people think. I certainly just assumed that it was a lot farther on than what you're telling us, and this story needs to be told for sure. So thank you for what you're doing behind the scenes. We hope to shed some light on this for you. And, I hate to transition like this because we are running out of time, but this is where we go in to thank some people. And I do want to talk to you after we turn the record button off. But initially, we started this podcast to help out Joe DeSena get to nonprofits. And that's where Michelle Burr came in. So we always, at the end of every show, we talk about Michelle Burr and In Bloom Consulting. And as you know, Steve, firsthand, that she's an incredible human, and what she does in the nonprofit space, there's probably no one better in the country. So if anybody's involved with nonprofits, I don't care what phase you are in your nonprofit cycle, Michelle Burr and In Bloom Consulting is someone you want to talk to. And at the very end, we talk about Scott Graves, who runs a phenomenal nonprofit called Special Op Excursions. And he takes out active duty soft guys, special operations warriors, hunting and fishing and just relaxing if they want to hang out in the lodge and not do anything. And he does that for the families. I was just out there at his lodge about 2 weeks ago out in Western Tennessee just to hang out and decompress myself. It shut down because of COVID, but I got some good time with Scott, and he's gone from, I think, something like 12 guys his first year out to servicing 600 guys and families in probably 7 or 8 years. So anybody who wants to help him and help his incredible story, it's specialopsexcursions.org. And Colonel, I'll leave you with a final note if you don't mind.
I just want to look. It's our honor, my honor. I'm sure our honor, just to meet you and hear your story, hear your brother's story. I wish you a lot of luck going forward. I'd like through Neal and everything. We'll stay in touch. If there's anything we can do, then we will. We'll do whatever we can. I've just, as Neal said, just really surprised. I just thought technology was further along, so it's a little bit of a bummer to hear where we're at. But also, it's also encouraging to know that a guy like you is out there pushing. And I gotta have faith and belief that you're gonna solve this thing, or at least push it down the road and get it in front of the right people. So I wish you a lot of luck with that. And thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, and Steve, we're on your team. I'm on your team. So whether you like it or not, this might be a bad thing for you. But you might be getting, as Colonel Nye knows this, you might be getting a text from me at 1 a.m. with an idea.
Next thing you know, you'll be getting a plaque.
Right.
Guys, this has been really a lot of fun. I appreciate it. I don't get a chance to really verbalize a lot of this in the way that we talk. So you guys asked some really poignant questions. I appreciate that. I'm thankful for the opportunity to come on and discuss my story, my brother's story with you. And I want to thank both of you for the work you're doing with this podcast. I listened to a number of the episodes, and they were fantastic. You had some really great people on and telling great stories. I think it's the type of thing that people really need to hear these days, and I'm humbled to be a part of it.
Well, thanks, Steve. You're a good man, good American, and we'll be in touch, okay?
Strength in Numbers is produced by Be Viral Production. Find out how Be Viral can produce your next show, commercial, or podcast at www.beviralproduction.com.